Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Oshae Jones versus Elia Carranza fight. Sorry again, pronunciation is always awful. But yeah, if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video. If you do indeed like the video, feel free to join the Patreon as well. Again, I'll say that the pronunciation never does get better, and I do, still often stutter my words, but if you can understand what I'm saying, it really does appreciate, I do really appreciate it, and it does really support the channel. There's a few members there now, and you can request any kind of combat sporting related content, and I'll put it out there for you guys. So like I say, thank you very much for the support so far with it, and we'll get straight into this one. So Oshae Jones, she is the kind of star in which OTX needs, and realistically, this is a showcase of OTX, to be honest. They've got a few good fighters, and Elijah Pierce is one in which I've had the pleasure of interviewing, and he's a very nice guy, and he's making his, I believe, featherweight debut on the undercard of this in the co-main event against Michael Dasmiranis. And again, that's not a bad fight. Like I say, it's a debut in the featherweight division. He's highly ranked, Elijah, and again, alongside with Oshae Jones, they've got a couple of good fighters. They got the Lugo brothers, so like I say, not too bad of a selection of fighters. I think Katsurakis is another one of their fighters, a Greek fighter. So like I say, they've got a good selection of fighters, but I feel definitely at the moment OTX needs somebody like an Oshae Jones because she's their only world champion, and she was their first world champion and their only world champion from what I believe at the moment. And they are building up a good, like I say, good selection of fighters, but none of them are quite yet, bar maybe Elijah Pierce if he gets the opportunity, are quite yet there in that position to be a world champion or to be given that world title shot. So they really do kind of need Oshae Jones to be able to main event these cards and to bring in a decent fan base, in which she seemingly can do. But like I say, she's definitely one of the major names in OTX at the moment. I do believe she could go on to probably make more money if she was on to go on to join with MVP, but of course there's probably a contract with OTX that would stop that from happening. So, like I say, maybe she's a bit restricted, fighting the level of opposition in which OTX can bring and can attract. But at the same time, she is coming off a fight with Femke Hermans, and that was a very tough fight in which went to split decision. And I've watched it, and it was, like I say, a close fight in which perhaps showed a few vulnerabilities in Oshae Jones's game, and definitely introduced her to the professional world level side of things. I think Hermans is a very tricky opponent in the way of she's just going to be difficult to deal with. She just throws so much, and she just fights at such a high tempo in which it would just be difficult for any fighter to be able to deal with. And credit to Jones, I feel like she did do enough to be able to win the fight, but like I say, it was maybe a bit of an eye-opener to an extent to showcase that it's not easy to be able to get to being a world champion. And of course, yes, the super welterweight division isn't the most stacked, but at the same time there's definitely some names in there that are going to give her tests, and she's been needing these tests. Of course, she's a Olympic medalist, so she has been moved quickly in her career, and you can see that she has that star potential in the way that she talks and the confidence that she goes around with, the fact that she's dancing after fights and stuff like that. Like I say, that stuff will sell and that stuff will do well, but she needs to, again, like I say, be showcased that it is going to be tough, and there is going to be tough competitors that are world level competitors who are going to be there for a fight and there to definitely cause damage and to throw hands. So again, I think Herman showed that, and perhaps this is why OTX may be perhaps keeping her defending her belt a couple times before she goes on to the other champions, because there's no real rush. She is still a young fighter. She's only 27 years of age, and compared to a lot of the fighters in which she's facing and in and around in the division, she is one of the youngest. And I mean, her opponent here is 34, so like I say, there is that age difference, and it's kind of similar with a lot of possible competitors in which she could be in against. And I mean, again, like I say, the actual division isn't really that stacked. Saying that the welterweight division is got some amazing names, the super welterweight division is lacking a bit. I mean, they've got Cecilia Brackhouse, who is a great fighter and a great name, but she is on the latter side of her career and she hasn't looked amazing as of recent, and she hasn't really been fighting that often, and she's not even a world champion at the moment. She is an interim champion. The world champions are Mary Spencer, who is WBA champion, who's actually lost to Hermans, from what I believe, and then Emma Kozin, who is the WBC and WBO champion, who, again, like I say, has lost when she fought against a kind of elite and hasn't realistically been in with a tremendously tough fighter since becoming a world champion, or even when she won the belts. So, like I say, it's not a particularly stacked division, and I feel like someone like Jones, like I say, has that potential to be a standout star in there, and she could go on to perhaps become an undisputed champion if she is progressed the right way. But like I say, I don't feel like it's surprising to see that they've taken somebody like Elia here, where it's a good contender coming through who is definitely going to give her a challenge. But at the same time, you can't underestimate Elia coming into this fight, because she's already beaten two undefeated fighters and beaten a former IBF champion in Chris Namus. Yes, that was a Chris Namus who was lost via knockout and was coming off multiple defeats, including ones against Natasha Jonas, just to say a name out there. But like I say, she was coming off multiple defeats before she fought Elia, but still she has beaten these people and she's been building herself well, and I think she is actually well skilled and really talented, and I think has the ability to perform well in this fight. But of course we have to wait and see. She hasn't got the same level of experience as that of what Hermans did, and this is of course a first 10 rounder for herself, and like I say, she's on the much older side of things compared to that of Jones. She's not one of the fighters who are like in her 40s or in her late 30s, so she still perhaps could be in a prime here, but still, like I say, Jones has definitely got that more youthfulness, aggression about her, which could definitely cause problems to any fighter in the division. To speak more about Jones as a fighter, she's bullish, and I think she does want to, and to be fair, fights her best when she is trying to push you back and be the aggressor. She definitely showcased in that Hermans fight that she has the aggression to be able to, like I say, withstand and fight against somebody who is just going to be continuously throwing and continuously a threat throughout the fight. And that was inevitably what I feel like won her that fight. She just had the mental willpower, which was just, like I say, pouring, and not allowing somebody like a Hermans to be able to get through her kind of mental fortitude. She was just continuously throwing and causing damage, and definitely landing with the more powerful blows, in which, for the most part, is probably why she was able to win the rounds. And also at the same time, throughout the earlier rounds, she was the one holding her ground, and to be fair, even in the later rounds, she was still trying to hold her ground. So it kind of meant that Hermans was continuously moving around, which meant that Jones, by the judges' standpoint, looked like she was the one being, like I say, the aggressor, pushing that tempo and looking better out of the two. She will also aim to counter quite a lot. It's not always the best, but I think her timing is good. So, the timing's there for the counters, but the counters itself can sometimes be off. Like when she's trying to throw a straight from her counter. So, for example, Hermans was throwing, she then tried to throw a straight counter herself. She was continuously out of range, and it wasn't a shot that was really causing much success, and it was putting her in position to then be caught back by Hermans. And she's got, but then at the same time, she has got that good timing when she was quite continuously catching Hermans when she was coming in with the overhands. So again, that's something in which she can work on, and then she might be able to have some really good counter punching ability. She keeps her hands quite high for the most part. It does drop at times, but for a lot of the time it can be quite high, and she changes levels quite well, and she typically does have a high output, and I think she does a lot of her best work when she's throwing from quite low down. A lot of the time she'll kind of duck ahead a bit, and that's not really something I'd recommend because, it's first of all, you're not really seeing where you're punching, and second of all, you can often cause head clashes doing that. But when she's throwing from that kind of more low down position, she can come over the top quite nicely, or she can go to the body with a straight shot quite nicely. She's not got awful head movements. It's not always, the best, but it's not bad either, and she can, she'll cover up to make you commit and make you come in, which is something in which then can lead on to her to time a nice shot, to an extent playing possum maybe. She's got solid timing, like I say, and she's definitely there to pounce with that aggression. She's got that aggression in which, like I say, is pouncing and can really just flip momentum in that way. Negatives about her, I think the defensive guard in close can be a bit of a problem. She can get too close when she's throwing, and then she's not shortening up her shots, and she's also a big target there to get hit. She, like I say, does struggle to find her range using the straight counters in which she was throwing and getting around the jab without getting caught. She's often getting caught coming in, and that was something in which was where Hermans was having more success. She, like I say, ducks her head in quite often and can often be overreaching, which again can become a bit predictable. Her hand speed is not amazing. I think a man's hand speed was definitely better in that fight, and she does kind of stay there admiring her work a bit. I feel like she leaves out a jab, and she looks like she's trying to measure her distance with it, but it doesn't really seem to actually be doing a tremendous amount. And then instead she's just getting caught because she's there trying to set up something. But like I say, it just doesn't seem like it looks like it is measuring anything. She's doesn't really take much of a step back, or she doesn't really circle back into the center of the ring and like reset. And if she started doing that, she could be able to have a lot more success and be able to cut out the wars a bit more. She only throws singles when she's on the back foot, and that was what was a bit of a problem when Hermans was able to get her on the back foot later into the fight and was having more success, was because she was only throwing singles and it was becoming quite repetitive, and Hermans was doing well enough to either be able to ride them singles or to be able to get out the way of them because she could see them coming and then respond back with the multiple shots in which she was throwing. Again, that's something in which she definitely would have to work on, especially if Carranza uh, is able to, cause any problems to her. Speak more about Elia. She pairs up her jab nicely. I think that's something which I've seen good from her in a few of her fights in which I've been able to see. She will often go to the body with that jab, just like Jones does, but then she'll come back up to the head in that same kind of motion, in the same attack, and then be able to continuously kind of spam to an extent the jab and still be able to have success. She's got good solid feints and good fundamentals, and she circles off the ropes better than I feel like that of Jones does. I feel like she's definitely a better mover than that of Jones, and I think she is definitely a different type of fighter to that of Hermans. She changes her levels well, and she's got good movement. Like I say, when she uses it, it can be very good, and she's got the faster hands, I believe. At the same time, though, she won't be bullied, and she does fight out of bad positions quite well. Will she be able to fight out of these positions against somebody who is as physically strong and aggressive as that of Jones, who, like I say, will want to probably put her in her place to an extent, and we'll have to wait and see. She pushes off oncoming jabs quite well and kind of pushes them away and blocks them off. She's not got an awful shoulder roll either. She'll sometimes try and use it, and there's very few fighters, especially in the female side of things, that actually use it and have success with it. But it's not awful when she uses it, and it is something a bit different. And I'm sure that could cause uh, Jones to miss a few, a bit at times. Negatives about her, I think finding her range can be something that can take a bit of time, and she likes to often fight at that mid range and have that bit of space. But again, if she finds the range, then she'll have success. But that's if she's allowed to find the range. She's not as physical, and again, that's probably where. Again, I think the aggression might cause problems for her, and she hasn't realistically been in a war. Of course, she hasn't realistically been tested at the same level in which Jones has now experienced, and so it will be interesting to see if that does happen. And she does seemingly stand and trade a bit at times, which is when she could get caught, and she wants to fight at a slower tempo, which I feel like Oshae Jones just won't allow. She will let you come forwards. Like I say, she's more willing to fight on the back foot. She doesn't have a tremendous amount of power in her shots herself, and she can, try and throw bigger shots at overhands from quite low down, and it means that it is, quite visible to see. And I mean, Jones might be able to get out of the way of them. I'm not entirely sure if she would, but we'll have to wait and see. Who do I think is going to win? Of course, this being for the IBF and IBO World Super Welterweight titles, if you did not already know. I think that Oshae Jones will be able to win via majority decision. I think it is going to be a solid showcase from Oshae Jones, but I do think that Elia is going to cause problems to Jones, especially if she can keep her shape and keep her movement throughout a lot of the fight. If she just gets drawn straight into a, standing and trading war, then I think she'll struggle. But if she can keep her movement, like I say, and possibly into the later rounds, she might be able to have success when Jones is kind of just plodding forwards and ducking her head down a bit and perhaps just swinging the odd singular shot. We'll have to wait and see which kind of Jones we get, if it's going to be that version or the version of Jones where she's really aggressive, throwing a lot and really trying to push you back. If that Jones is fighting, which normally that kind of version comes in the earlier types of the fight, she'll have success then. But in the later parts, again, Elia might be able to have bits of success, but inevitably I just don't think physically she's going to be able to stand there with Jones and have enough success and cause enough damage to be able to back her up. And again, I feel like that was just when Hermans was having the best of success, when she was able to back up Jones. And like I said, I just don't feel like Elia will be able to back up Jones enough. So inevitably Jones, a close split decision, a close majority decision, perhaps a unanimous decision. Maybe Elia might be able to outbox her and outmove her and win a close split decision, but for the most part, I believe Jones will be able to win the decision. Then who she can go on to next? I mean, I've touched upon Cozen as being an option. Like I say, I feel like OTX aren't going to be rushing to give her another world champion just yet. And I mean, I don't really know what's going on with Cozen. I don't think she's fought in over a year. So again, these belts could become vacant soon. I'm not entirely sure. Cornejo, I feel like could be a good option and perhaps could be the next option for Jones. Cornejo has got fight booked when she's trying to get back into the winning column, and it's a step down in opposition and it's next month, and if she gets through that, then I feel like that could definitely be a setup fight for Jones. I mean, if you look at who Cornejo's fought, she's fought your Clarissa Shields, she's just come off a loss to Cecilia Brackhouse, and she's got some losses on her record, but they're often against some of the better fighters around in the division. And so I feel like Oshae Jones, if she wants to pick up somebody who's kind of been in around with the bigger names, then I feel like Cornejo is a good option, especially if she gets back in the winning column. So again, like I say, that could be a good fight to make. At the same time, is Cornejo deserving of a world title shot, saying she lost to the interim champion in Brackhouse? I'm not entirely sure, but still, that could be a good fight. If not, if she wants to face another undefeated up-and-comer, then Pertel is a French fighter who is WBC silver champion, and she's just come off a win in the toughest fight of her career so far, but I don't believe she's fought outside of France yet. I think she's 11-0, so again, that could perhaps be an option there. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like video if you did indeed like video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.